There. Okay. Okay, so salamat that nabuksan. Okay. So I'm going to talk about emergency preparedness. Actually, my objective for this presentation is number one, I want to discuss, share what are the fundamental elements of emergency preparedness. Because there are a lot of procedures in emergency preparedness. When I was in oil and gas, they have a very lengthy, elaborate emergency preparedness program. Also in Intel, we have a very detailed emergency preparedness program. Okay, but the thing is, what really are the fundamental elements of a emergency preparedness program? So that's what I'm going to discuss in the first part. And then in the second part, I would like to show, in the context of what's happening now, I'm going to show what companies are doing to prevent COVID-19 infecting their workers, especially in Makati. So there are, DOLE, DTI have guidelines in COVID-19 prevention, but what I'm discussing at what companies are actually doing to prevent COVID from spreading in their workplace. Okay? So moving on to the next page. B-Boy, can we turn the page? Yeah, there. So this is the statement of National Safety Council as far as disaster and emergency is concerned. National Safety Council is a authorized body in the U.S. of occupational safety and health professional. So this is their statement. No industrial, commercial, or public organization is immune from disaster. Emergencies can arise anytime and from many causes, but the potential loss is the same. Personal injury, damage to the environment, and property damage. Advanced planning for emergencies is the best way to minimize this potential loss. Actually, this is true. No company or organization can really boast that they're immune from disaster. Emergencies can happen anytime, like earthquake, or typhoon, or fire. Okay, so again, as mentioned in this slide, advanced planning for emergency is the best way to minimize potential loss. So there is still loss, but how do you minimize that? Okay, so common programs to prepare the organization is training. Okay, training the people on emergency preparedness. Second is inspection. Okay, inspecting your facilities or buying emergency equipment. Emergency equipment like first aid, stretchers, fire extinguishers, alarms, etc. Okay, so so that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss about the different elements. So there are actually 10 elements. Most of these came from the accident prevention manual. So the National Safety Council have a material which is very good, elaborate about safety, emergency preparedness. It's called Accident Prevention Manual from the National Safety Council. So if you're a safety practitioner, we want to really study about occupational safety and health, you can buy that online. Okay? The accident prevention manual. So this is where I got the content of this presentation, and I only added here one. This is based on my experience, and this is the number one here, which is Health and Safety Committee. Okay, moving on to the next page, B-Boy. Next page. Okay, one of the important element of emergency preparedness is the Health and Safety Committee. Health and Safety Committee. So there are a lot of elements there, right? But this is the most important. All of it is important, but this is very important because this is the group this is the group who will drive emergency preparedness programs and other safety programs. Okay, so it is very important that a company have a active health and safety committee. Okay, they meet monthly. You have the right composition. Okay, so the health and safety committee is usually composed of managers. Okay, HR managers, safety managers, operation managers, the members of the union, if you're unionized, are also members here. Uh, the representative of the company. So this is a very high senior, a very senior officer. Okay, so this team is the policy making body of the company in terms of safety and health. They approve the budget, they review programs, they push for the implementation of occupational safety and health. Today, you have COVID-19, right? So this is the committee, this is the team that drives implementation of COVID-19 program. So this is very important that the company has an active health and safety committee. Now, as far as DOLE is concerned, this is a requirement of DOLE. In fact, every January, you're required to submit the documentation of your health and safety committee, meaning the members or who is the chairman. So that's required. We have this form called IP5. So you submit that to the regional office of DOLE. It shows there the members of the committee and the safety and health programs of the company. Okay, so that's one, health and safety committee. Next page. Another very important element of emergency preparedness is the procedure or the policy. Okay, the procedure or the policy. So there has to be a basis of your programs in the company para may susundan. Okay, so uh, uh, emergency response procedure can differ from one industry to another. So you can Google for some of the examples. But normally, the emergency response procedure shows the detailed activity on what to do before, during, after emergency. Okay? Usually, the emergency included here in the emergency response procedure are fire, typhoon, earthquake, and then this one, pandemic. Okay, so what do you do before fire? Okay, so training, inspection, fire drill, etc. Okay, so this emergency response procedure also shows the incident command system, the emergency response team. It also shows the emergency equipment of your company, etc. Okay, so again, you can Google for some example of this, but the thing is, you need to write one for your company. Okay, so the one who will write this is the safety officer. And then, of course, the senior officers will have a chance to review this. Okay? So once this is signed, this will be your emergency response procedure that your company will follow. Now, just like any other document, this emergency response procedure is a living document. So this gets updated over the years. Okay? When Jeff and myself was in Intel, we have a very good emergency response procedure. That is because it has gone through a number of revisions already based on many years of experience. So that's why we have a very good emergency response procedure. But you have to have a document to start with. Okay? Emergency response procedure. In fact, if there are DOLE auditors, they will look for this one. Do you have emergency response procedure? Okay. So most of the auditors will look for this one. Okay. Do you have any? Do you want to ask question now or just later? Okay. Maybe let's move to the next page. Okay. So another fundamental of emergency preparedness is training. So training, you have to train all employees in the company. Not only the employees, also the support groups, the contractors. Okay, so there are people working in the building or in the plant that are not regular employees, but they have to be trained also. Okay, so that's why we need the emergency response procedure. because that document, which is usually a Word document, is converted into a PowerPoint file, and that will be the training material for the company. Okay, so that's why the emergency response procedure is very important, because that will be the basis for the training. So you train your people what to do during fire. You teach them how to use the fire extinguisher. You teach them to turn on the fire alarm, etc. For earthquake, you teach them how to drop, cover, and hold, etc., etc. Okay, so now again, training can be classroom, face to face, but now because of COVID-19, so a lot of training are done online. So that's okay. That's also acceptable with Dole. But you need to have training. So you need to train everybody, and it has to be documented. And another thing I want to mention about training is there has to be refresher training. So training is not one shot. Okay, so the best practice of companies is usually they have refresher after, other companies every 2 months or every 2 years, others usually 3 years. So there's a refresher every 3 years for this training, because why? People tend to forget. So that's why there's a refresher training. Okay. Any question with training? No training. No question. Okay. So another element of emergency preparedness is drills. Okay, fire drill, tabletop drill. Okay. So now you have a guideline, you did the training, now you have to practice it. So this is what the fire drill is all about. Okay, practice it, doing it actually. Okay, so but there are two types of drill: the actual drill, like the fire drill. Okay, so you practice going out the building, you practice using the fire extinguisher, or you practice going down the table, drop, cover, and hold, etc. So those are actual drills, fire drill, earthquake drill. There's another type of drill. They call it tabletop drill. Tabletop drill or desktop drill. Okay, so these things have different names. What tabletop drill is, you go through your emergency response procedure. So you simulate, you just do it in a room. There are a group of officers, engineers, supervisors, managers. You go through your emergency response procedure. So that's how tabletop drill is. If your tabletop drill says the manager and the supervisor should have this type of training in emergency preparedness, you check the training records of the supervisor, managers, if they have this type of training. Your emergency response procedure says that you need to have suppliers for food or transportation. In case there will be no food or transportation, you have a contractor. So you check if you indeed have contracts with a food provider and bus provider. Okay, if your emergency response procedure says that you have a hotline, call the hotline. If somebody will really answer, and if he answers it properly. Okay, so that's how that tabletop drill is done. So you have two, the actual drill and the tabletop drill. Now, another thing that's very important here that sometimes overlooked is the documentation. Okay, so evaluation and documentation. So after a drill, example, after a fire drill, it's important that you go into a room and then you assess the fire drill that just happened. What went fine? What needs improvement? So in Intel before we call that plus and minus. So then you discuss what happened, okay, good, and what needs improvement. And that needs to be documented in the fire drill report. Okay, so that the following year you work that you don't repeat that mistake again. So if you do that, you keep on improving and improving. Okay, so don't forget that the evaluation and the documentation, because that's very important. Okay. Okay, I'm very talkative. Next, next page. So, one important fundamental of emergency preparedness is the emergency equipment. Okay, so you need to have a budget of emergency equipment. Now, this varies from one industry to another. Of course, in oil and gas, we have high-tech emergency equipment like H2S detectors, CABA, etc. Okay, But you need to decide what emergency equipment you need to have, especially here in Makati. Okay, what are the normal emergency equipment that you have? Fire extinguisher. Okay, uh, building alarm. Okay, stretcher. Okay, what else? First aid kit. Okay, fire hose, etc. Okay, so that's why you need to have that emergency response procedure, but because it is there where you will define what will be your emergency equipment for your company. Okay, so one of the section in the emergency response procedure is the emergency equipment. Okay, so that's very important, emergency equipment. And lastly, before I discuss the one, you need to have a very good maintenance program also for the emergency equipment. So you just don't buy and it's okay. No, no, no. There has to be a regular maintenance program, making sure that when the disaster come, crisis come, it will function properly. Okay, just like in Makati. So we have this regular contractors that goes to the building that checks the fire hose, the alarm, if they function properly. So we're paying that contractor to check the equipment. Okay, so that's very important. Maintenance of the emergency equipment. Okay, another basic for emergency response is ERT, emergency response team. So this is very common now with the companies. They have their respective emergency response team. Okay, for the company. Uh, Usually this is like you have this type of volunteer type of setup. So you ask volunteers from your people to join the ERT, emergency response team. So usually the emergency response team, they have this regular training. Uh, they meet monthly. Okay. Um, uh, it depends on the industry, but a lot of emergency response team members, they can fight fire. They can do evacuation. Okay, so essentially, basically, this is the group that responds to crisis. Okay, example, if there's fire or earthquake, so they will be the one to fight the fire, facilitate evacuation of the building. Okay, so uh, in the second page it shows a example of a emergency response team. Next page. Okay, so this is an example of a emergency response team. Uh, it's not exactly this one, but this is just an example. So you can use this one, or you can modify this based on your needs. Okay, but normally an emergency response team, there's a leader. They call it a marshal or safety marshal or a fire marshal. So there's a leader. Usually it's a senior officer, and then you have members. Okay, the members performs different functions. So you have firefighters, you have search and rescue. So that's why there are trainings, okay? Because they will do their function. So you don't just form this team. There needs to be budget. There needs to be training. Like when I was in EDC, our emergency response team was sent to US. So they trained in the US for like 3 months or 4 months. So it depends. Or the training can be local with BFP and other STOs. Okay, and then you have the medical team. Okay, so these are the nurses trained to do first aid, trained to transfer injured person from the company to the hospital, etc. And then you have the communications team. Okay, doing communication during crisis or even before crisis. They handle communication. Or, for example, if there's a media or people from outside who wants to talk to representatives of the company, so there's a designated person who will talk to that. So not everybody can talk to media or people from the government. Okay, so there's a designated person to talk to them. Okay, and then you have the security team, the salvage team, or these are the people who are designated to remove important documents or important equipment. That's why in companies you will see documents or equipment with numbers. So these are priority numbers. So meaning if a fire happens, you bring out this document or equipment first. Okay, So this is the purpose of the salvage team. And then, of course, there's the security team. Okay, during fire or crisis, you still have to maintain the security. Baka kasi may looting. Okay, so there needs to be security. You need to maintain security, and also usually the security team, they are the one who manage the flow of the traffic. Like nobody will be allowed to enter, or they will facilitate the parking of the fire truck, etc. Okay, so again, this is just an example. This can vary from one company or industry to another, but it's up to you to decide what are the composition of your emergency response team. So this is basically the team who responds in a crisis or disaster situation. Okay, next page. Communication. Okay, so actually the main communication to teach your employees about uh, emergency response, the main communication is the training, because the training is very well elaborate. But you can't afford to have training only. You need to have communications in between. Okay, like example of these are posters, emergency response posters that your people can see in the pantry area or the hallway. Okay, email blast, because email na tayong lahat ngayon, di ba? Email blast or banners. Okay, so if you have training and then your people always see these posters and email blast about emergency preparedness, when crisis come, disaster come, they know what to do. Okay, so it's very important that we have this communication aside from the training that we have. In big companies, they have this LED panels at the lobby or at the cafeteria, so they can show these materials. Okay, so it's like mind conditioning of people. So not only the training, but this communication, this will also help. Okay. Do you want to ask question now or later? Okay, so moving on to the next page. Okay, so those are the ones that I mentioned, the 10. Here's a question I'll read. Is it requirement from Bureau of BFP? What? I can see the message.
Let me read it for you. There are a couple of questions actually. What is the relationship?
Okay, I can read now.
Alrighty. Go ahead.
Okay. These teams are assigned by HR or by independent department. Okay. So what happens with the emergency response team is the one who will draft the Rev Zero is the safety department, and then they will ask the support of production, engineering. Again, these are largely volunteer basis. Okay, seldom will it reach that you will ask HR to identify. So normally their people are enthusiastic and they'll be part. They want to be part of the emergency response team. So normally that's what happens. People will step forward and they will. In my years of experience in safety, I haven't seen really that people don't want to join the ERT. And normally people want to join the ERT, okay? Because that what will happen is they will be identified. In many companies, there are allowances, and there are uniforms, and they will be known because there will be picture will be displayed in the pantry, in the lobbies. Okay, so this is the reason why people want to join the ERT. Okay, what is the relationship between Health and Safety Committee and the National Disaster Coordinating Council? And the LGU department. So what's the relationship? Good question. So in the sometimes I'm asked to join meetings with MMDA, National Disaster Coordinating Council, but if you look at it from a government setup, the agency that has really mandate as far as occupational safety is concerned is DOLE. So we report to DOLE. I'm not saying that we don't report to other departments, but that's the main department we work with and communicate Dole, because they're the one who has the mandate of occupational and safety and health. But there are other companies that we work with as far as safety is concerned, like BFP. They also have the requirement. If you're in EDC, you need to work with Department of Energy. If you're in the port, you need to work with PPA, Philippine Port Authority. So other government agencies, they have branches of safety. So you need to cooperate with them. But really, the main government agency you need to work with is DOLE, because DOLE is the one mandated by law to manage occupational safety and health. In fact, our standard, the OSH standard, occupational safety health standard, that was made by DOLE. Okay. Uh, Next. Ah, here's the question. Is it a requirement from BFP prior to renewal of business permits to undergo fire earthquake drills? You need to have fire drills, yeah, and training. That's a requirement. Okay. Uh, in Makati, if you have fire drill, uh, before the drill, BFP will come in and they will do the training. Okay. So some parts I do the training, but other parts BFP. And then during the fire drill, they will watch. Okay, they will watch, and you need to submit the fire drill report to BFP. If you don't have FSIC, and if you don't have FSIC, which is fire safety inspection certificate, if you don't have, you cannot have a business permit. So this is how this is connected. Okay, fire drill is needed for the FSIC, Fire Safety Inspection Certificate. FSIC is needed for the business permit. So that's why it's very important. Okay, the fire drill. A good thing you asked. That's required. The fire drill and the training. What's the normal budget needed to allocate per person for a company? Good question. Jeff knows this. uh, Back then, when we were in Intel, I think the budget per, aside from the uniform and the food, uh, back then it was $35, $35 or $40. Now it really depends on the company what you will decide. You need to have an allowance for the members of the emergency response team. So there's no exact answer to that. That's a management thing. Okay, the safety department can propose, but it's a management thing. Okay, because this is budget. Do you assess building structural integrity? Good question again. Okay, so safety officers, consultants like me from Dole, we are more of in the administration part of safety. Okay, uh, the program that we handle are audit, uh, safety training, submitting reports, incident investigation. These are the things that the normal safety officer handles. Now, when you talk about building structural integrity, you need an engineer here, a structural engineer or uh, a civil engineer. Okay, so this is not part of the scope of a safety officer. This technical thing about the integrity of the building. Okay. Yeah. Another question. I'll answer this. I'll answer this question, and then we proceed to the training. Okay. And then I answer the other question at the end of the training. Okay. So during this pandemic, will the fire drill be still required in the renewal of FSIC? It's not required today because of the pandemic. But what the BFP is requiring in lieu of that, and it's not nationwide. It depends on your local BFP, because some BFP are very strict, some are very lax. Some of the BFP I've seen, they require webinar. So they ask companies to attend their webinar. So, and that will be the equivalent for the fire drill. But fire drill is not required now because of the ongoing pandemics. Large assemblies, that's not required. Okay. Can we proceed now with the training? And then I'll answer the remaining questions later. Okay, so the one I discussed is the fundamental of emergency preparedness. The next part, this one I'm going to show, I'm going to show you examples of what companies, especially in Makati, are doing as far as COVID-19 is concerned to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So what I'm going to show you are the actual programs that this company are doing. Again, there's a guideline by DTI and DOLE. DTI and DOLE have come up with they kind of join, they come up with one guideline for DTI and DOLE. So you can Google that. It's DTI DOLE guideline for workplace prevention of COVID. So yun yung title ng guideline nila. DTI DOLE guideline for workplace prevention of COVID-19. So you can Google that. And but what is shown there is very basic. The use of masks, sanitation of buildings, social distancing, what else? Health declaration, contact tracing, etc. Work from home. So, of course, we need to follow that because that's the guideline of DT and DOLE. So, you can readily see that. You can have that copy if you Google it. Okay. Again, what I'm showing now are the actual programs being implemented by many companies there in Makati. Okay, this page just shows the risk assessment. What was the basis of implementing the controls? Okay, because this is basic in safety. You need to have risk assessment because there's a hazard, right? COVID-19. So how do you assess how do you assess the risk? Okay, so normally you do audit, you do risk assessment. In risk assessment, you have two parameters that you need to answer: the severity and the probability. Okay, so these are very technical topics, but the safety officer would know that. Uh, Given the different, of course, your office or plant have different areas, right? So you have the hazard differs from one place to another. So you will rate that in terms of severity and probability. Okay. So this is what this thing is talking about, risk assessment. But that's kind of very technical. Let's move to the next page. Okay. So these are the areas. These are the areas that these companies are looking at in terms of where do you focus so that you don't spread the COVID-19 virus. Okay. So the perimeter of the building. Okay, usually the entrance, the exits, the conveyance. When you say conveyance, this is about the transportation of the people, and then this includes elevators, etc. And then activities that involve people interaction, okay, like meetings or like when your supplier comes in, etc. Because these are the areas where you can spread COVID-19 virus. Okay, so this is the basis where they define the control measures for COVID-19. Okay, let me show you one by one. Next page, please. So this is an example of perimeter control. Okay, and probably you see this already. So this is just a review. So many buildings in the entrance, okay, they have this temperature check. Okay, so not only temperature check, you're asked to fill out some health declaration, right? So this is a form of control. Okay, so you're screening the entrance of people. So those who will not meet the temp check, they will not be allowed. Okay, and then you have the health declaration. Okay, so this is an example of perimeter control. Okay, next page. Another control, okay, is the transportation. So the transportation. Actually, a lot of companies in Makati provided buses, shuttle buses for the employees. Because if you want to lower the risk of COVID-19 infection, do not allow your employees to come in using public transport. Because there is lesser control there compared to a shuttle where you have co-employees there who are getting tested every month or taking vitamins, etc. So this is a reason why companies provide a shuttle for their employees, workers, rather than just allowing them to um, take the public transport. But Again, this is not for everybody because this is a management thing. This will incur cost. Okay, but a lot of companies in Makati, I will not mention the names. They're doing this, so they're providing shuttle service for the companies. Okay, next. Okay, so these are the control. Now we go now into the detail. These are the controls that we did inside the building. So elevator. So you have the risk of getting infected in the elevator because there are a lot of people there, right? So number one control, reduce the loading capacity. So like before, the capacity of the elevator was 20. So it was reduced to 9. Okay? So to reduce the risk of getting infected. Another control that was implemented in the company was do not allow people who are not wearing mask and shield. So mask and shield is a requirement once you're inside the building or the elevator. Okay? And then what we did also that what the changes other changes that we did as far as elevator is concerned. Before elevators were stopping every floor. Okay? So now there were assigned elevators uh, for a specific floor. Okay, so it's not now for every floor. Okay. Another thing implemented again for elevator is the cleaning. Before we don't clean, right? I think we cleaned before, but now it's more frequent. So every hour, the janitors are asked to clean the elevator panel, the doorknobs, etc. So there's frequent cleaning. Uh, for high touch surfaces, it's like once per hour. For rooms, it's there's deep cleaning at the end of the day. Okay, carpet cleaning, air flushing, etc. So a lot of cleaning going on. Okay, next page. Signages. So part of this COVID-19, so you display a lot of signages. Again, this is also a requirement of DOLE. So actually, the traditional type of signages are posters. Posters, right? Bulletin boards. Now, one thing I can share to you that's very effective and is not costly is the soft copy of our posters. We use that as screensavers in computers. So now you have the poster and screensaver. So it increases the communication and it heightens the awareness. So that's one thing we can do. Use the computers to display signages. If you have LED panels in cafeteria, at the lobby, so you can also show this COVID-19 signages. Usually that tells about hand washing, wearing of mask, social distancing. Okay, signages. Next, uh, people interaction. Okay, so before, so these are specific things that we did. Okay, before visitors can go to any floors in the building. Okay, now there are only designated rooms or area, usually only the ground room or the ground floor that they can access. Okay. Before, it's always face-to-face meeting, right? Now we avoid that, right? We use MS Team, we use WebEx. So meetings with contractors, visitors are now using video teleconferencing. Okay, no more face-to-face. Okay, if there's really important matters to discuss, but that has to be limited. Okay, and maybe very few attendees, maybe 2 or 3 attendees in that meeting. Social distancing. Okay, what and this is very important. There has to be changes in the building. Okay, sometimes our communication are uh, a lot of discussion about masks, but there are other important items aside from masks. Okay, like this one, social distancing. So what we did was we removed the chairs from the meeting rooms. Like we removed half of the chairs, or maybe 40% of the chairs. So because of that, no more chairs in meeting rooms, conference rooms, pantry. So people are forced to social distance because the chairs are not already there. So this is one important thing you can do in the building. Another thing that's not here in the material which I just remember. It's very important. Not a lot of people are talking about this. It's the HVAC of the building. What's the HVAC? Heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Now, if you have a building like 30 floors, 40 floors, you have this equipment in that building. HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. This is very important. Why? You need to see that this is functioning because this equipment removes 20% of the air inside the building real time. It removes 20% of the air and then it replaces it with fresh air. The remaining 80% is filtered. So this is the function of this HVAC. So it's very important. Maski nakamasking lahat dyan, kung ito sira, naku, magkakahawaan. Okay? So, it would be good if you talk to your facilities people and check, is our HVAC really functioning? Okay? Because this is very important, HVAC. Okay? And then another one showed here in the material is attendance in meeting room. This is where we meet with, if in case there's really a meeting with suppliers, their names are recorded and tracked. So in case we need the tracking of these people if there will be flare in infection. Okay, next. Yeah, this one shows the act. So I've been talking a lot, right? Removing of chairs, the control. So this actually shows what I was talking in the previous slide. So you can see here the chairs are already limited, and then in the room, in the table there are numbers. So the number is included in the attendance for contact tracing purposes. And you can see the chair. There is like a Kanban square. I don't know if you're familiar with the Kanban square in manufacturing. So, okay, so that will prevent people from moving the chair around. So you should not remove the chair from that Kanban square. Okay, next page. What's this? Okay, so other health practices that we need. Actually, this is a very important major slide because this is one of the things that we did that is not included in the DTI and DOLE guideline. Okay, so number one, wear mask face shield. That's common, right? Second is vitamins. Now, giving vitamins to employees. Actually, this is not a hard guideline by DOLE. If you look at the guideline, it says they're encouraged. But what we did is we really provided vitamins for the employees. And then we have another very important is this teleconsult hotline. What is this teleconsult hotline? Okay. There are health organizations that are providing consultancy service to companies. Okay, so companies like MaxiCare, ValueCare, what else? Active One, Self-Reliance. Okay, so this company provide consultancy services to your company. So what will happen is that they will provide you a number. If your employee is not feeling well, he can call that number. He can call that number, and then a doctor will answer. So he can talk to a doctor. So it's like consulting a doctor. Only that you're not going to the hospital. So you talk to the doctor in the phone, tell him how you feel. He will give you advice. The beauty to this is that that doctor can also give prescription through email. So if the doctor decides that you drink this, you drink that, you will issue prescription through email. Okay, and we did this not only for the employees, for all the households. Okay, and it's open 24 hours a day, 24/7. Okay, again, this is very good, but this will entail cost. Okay, but very good for COVID-19 control. And then testing. Again, this is not mandatory, but I would really recommend that we implement this. In our company, we test our people every month. Some are twice, antigen test. Okay, but again, this is costly because I think some tests are 2,000 each. Others 1,500. I don't know. So you will test your employees. Most of our employees who are talking to customers, they're tested twice. So imagine the budget. So you'll be spending like millions every month. Okay, but this is a management thing. You have to decide if you will do testing uh, for your employees. But I would really recommend that. Okay, next next page, please. So the one shown in the picture, this is just example of the testing facility. So people will come there, the employees will come there, and they will be tested. Okay, what's this next? I think I already mentioned this a while ago. The social distancing, the temperature reading. Okay, next, I've already mentioned that. For the cleaning, so I want to mention about the cleaning. Uh, Again, cleaning now is more frequent. Okay, we have this chemical that we call oxivir. So this is the chemical. This is a Johnson brand chemical for cleaning. So this is the one we use for um, deep cleaning, Oxivir. I talked to my sister in the U.S. San Diego. They're also using the same chemical in their hospital, Oxivir. So you can consider that if you're choosing brands for your cleaning chemical. Okay, so we do deep cleaning every day. Okay, hourly for the high touch surfaces like doorknobs, elevator panel, etc. We have carpet cleaning every dati ano lang to, once a year. Now it's quarterly. And then we have misting. If there's somebody infected in a particular area or office, that area is misted. Deep cleaning and misting. Okay, next page. And we also used acrylic panel. Okay, so aside from the mask, additional protection is. Have you seen yung mercury drug, di ba? Parang sa counter they're placing this plastic. So it's like that. Only that this is solid acrylic panel, so it's better in terms of aesthetics. So it's used in the counter where you interface with the clients. It's used even in the cubicle. So the cubicle are separated with this acrylic panel. So this is one thing you can consider. I can say that these controls I've mentioned to you are very effective. The reason why I mentioned that this from experience, I haven't really seen a flare of in infection in these buildings because of this different control. So it tells me that these controls are effective. Okay, it's already what 5:08. This is my last. This is my last slide. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for listening. You can ask question again. Do you have additional questions? Hello, Dom, B-Boy. Are there additional questions?
Meron ba? Chat box. Hello. Okay. Guys, questions. I think Engineer Excel. I think there are some questions on the chat box.
Okay. Okay, let me read. Regarding vaccine, what is the private companies doing for vaccination? Actually, I don't know with other companies, but in our company, our management have already communicated that this is for free for us. But we're also asked to donate if you want to donate for other, because we can buy and then we will donate it to the government. Okay, but as far as our companies are concerned, it's free. Okay, but actually, this cost of the vaccine is only small compared to the testing we did for almost what, 1 year already. So we've been doing testing. So a lot of costs have been went to the testing. So this vaccine, this is not a problem with the company. So it will be given free to all employees. Sir, itatanong ko lang bakit Excel ang name nickname. This is not my nickname. This is my true name. My name is Excel Mantilla. Uh, Nagtatanong sila, uh, is your father a prophet? Did he know that there will be MS Excel? No, no, no. The basis of my name is because I'm born in December. Sa December, di ba, may Excelsis Deo? Excelsis Deo. So that is where my father got my name. Excelsis Deo. So my name is Excel. So it's not a nickname. Another question here. What if there is a directive from DTI, some not to align to a company policy? What is your suggestion po? This is a good question. What if there is a directive from DTI Dole, somewhat not aligned to the company policy? What is your suggestion po? Okay. Yeah, yes, this happens. Now, good thing that you asked. So I can give a tip on this. Dole or even other agencies like DNR of BFP, they have standards, right? Okay, fine, they have standards, but it will boil down to the labor officer inspecting you. Okay, it will be the officer from Dole who will decide. So now, what if your standards are not aligned? So you have to explain properly. You have to explain properly to Dole why you're doing this. Uh, because, the guideline of Dole, when they wrote that, it's a general guideline. It's not for everybody, right? You have so many industries, so many companies. So sometimes their guideline is not applicable. So you have to explain that to Dole. Okay? So hopefully, Dole will understand and they will allow you to go with your standard. But the final decision will be with the labor inspector from Dole. Okay, that's why I would always advise that in your area you need to have a good relationship with the labor inspector. Okay, in our company we don't just wait for Dole audit. Usually we visit them, we present to them their programs. We know the inspector, so there's a relationship already. So if you have that, and then Dole knows that you're really doing your safety programs, and chances are they will allow you to implement your program. Okay? Safety companies, they need to buy them. This is very specific. How much should a hospital charge disinfecting a room? Because here in San Pablo, they charge 2,000 pesos per day. Uh, uh, I really, honestly, I really don't know what's the what's the right price for charging this disinfection room. Okay, so this is a internal thing with the hospital. Okay, okay. No other questions. So I hope you have learned with my lecture because